What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. This week we are talking about Season 1, Episode 4, Babel. I'm really excited to talk to Mike about this episode and not about tech. We have been on the struggle bus, but we are here for you. Very excited as we launch our new Deep Space Nine series. We are recording this on April 8th. So we're about to launch the series. So hopefully, if you're watching this, you have watched the last couple of episodes and have decided to continue with us after giving us a try. I promise we are developing the show. We are finding new and fun little wrinkles, new graphics, new jingles, new segments, and we are more than happy to take your advice. What would you like to see? What would you like to be different? And just leave a comment below on the YouTubes. While you're doing that, do us the like, do us the subscribe, do us the notification. Tell other Deep Space Nine fans about this show. We very much appreciate it. Mike, what else might we appreciate?
Well, listen, as Keith mentioned, the wrinkle here is that I've never watched this show before. So there's only so much we can do without spoiling it for me. So Keith is trying to get creative. Really, we're just having a somewhat curated conversation about Deep Space Nine, but episode by episode. Hey, guess what? I'm also watching it for the first time in real time, and you can join me for that. It's at one of our tiers on our brand new Patreon. That's at patreon.com/K&M. Now, you will become a patron for the entire channel. So that includes Deep Space Nine, which is going to be our main focus going forward. The conclusion of our original show, which is the Out of Practice podcast, where we take a deep, very, very deep, very, very thorough dive of David E. Kelley's underrated original smash hit, The Practice, all 8 seasons, every episode. Check that out on the channel. If you haven't started yet, there's plenty of content for you. Get used to this. We've also got our Star Trek Toys show that is very much like this show, developing itself as we get to the end of looking at Keith's collection of Star Trek toys and creators out there. A whole bunch of great stuff. We will be developing the Patreon via your suggestions, via our creativity as we go forward. If you can't afford one of the higher tiers, don't worry about it. You can join for as low as $1. There's also goodies there for you. Well, $3 is the first official, but I think there's an option to donate whatever.
Oh.
And as Keith mentioned, if for any reason you're just supporting too many other things or you don't have the ability to help us out now, no problem. You can also help us by just liking and subscribing below. I think that's the spiel, Keith. I want to talk about this episode because talk about synchronicity. There's plenty of it. Can't wait to get to it.
There certainly is. I'm very excited about it. And but before we talk about the episode, let's talk about the world a little bit. This aired on Sunday, January 24th, 1993. If you're keeping track at home, I was 13 at the time. Okay. And we were listening once again, many weeks in a row, to the classic Whitney Houston. I will always love hearing Mike singing that song.
Love you, love you.
Okay, well, you can unsubscribe by just clicking the unsubscribe button, and then we'll disappear. I don't know if you can block us, but you can definitely unsubscribe.
Restraining order.
The top movie was Aladdin again.
Keith, little tidbit about Aladdin. This is hot content that people want on the internet. The lyrics for the song A Whole New World.
Like A Whole New World, okay.
Is what taught me the idiom red letter. Every moment, red letter.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, those
they
are some
rhyme
real good
gets
lyrics.
better with red letter.
Red letter. It mostly rhymes. I'll take it. I'll take it. Well, judges have ruled. They'll allow it.
Will this be a red letter episode, Keith?
It'll be something. We've been redlining all of our tech all morning. The New York Times headline was, U.S. asserts Serbs are still running prisoner centers after the Serbian war. Certainly, grim. But it was 1993, and things got the same. This episode, of course, Babel, was directed by Paul Lynch, who I've mentioned previously had done 5 episodes of Next Gen, 5 episodes of Deep Space Nine, and interestingly, as we watched it on television, it was 2 back-to-back episodes directed by Paul Lynch. However, they actually shot it as 2 and 4, so he at least didn't have to actively direct back-to-back episodes. And this episode was written, had a teleplay by Michael McGreevy, his only episode of Trek, and Naren Shankar, who was a story editor and writer on 29 episodes of Next Generation, 1 episode of Voyager, and 2 Deep Space Nine, and has a story by Sally Caves, who wrote this and Hollow Pursuits on Next Generation are their only IMDb credits. And a story by Ira Stephen Bear, who was a producer on all of Deep Space Nine and will become the showrunner of Deep Space Nine. And he wrote 3 episodes of Next Gen and 53 episodes of Deep Space Nine. Legendary Ira Stephen Bear. Yes, Michael.
Now, Keith, often when we discuss movies, we are quick to credit the director of photography or the cinematographer. You don't hear as much about it in television, although on my watch along for this week, which you can check out at patreon.com/KandM at the Voyagers tier. Very
These
clever. These
are the Voyagers of Mike Watching.
Although I believe the pilot we're going to make free for all so you can kind of get a taste. But that would have already happened because we're weeks in the future, Keith. Anyway, I mentioned that this is one of those episodes of television where it's very clear that the director, the cinematographer / director of photography, and whoever might be doing the blocking, a combination of the two, really worked hand in hand to establish shots, because this is shot very cinematically, this episode specifically. And I hope that it is a harbinger for the way the show will continue, because the shots are just beautiful. The photography is beautiful. And the cohesion of the team that generally you would hope this early in the run of a new show, especially a big budget show for the network, would be this cohesive. But if you say it gets better and it continues on this train, I can only imagine where we're headed. So it's very exciting.
No, well, it's funny because we talk about the storytelling gets better, the acting gets better, the cinematography gets better. Because I think Deep Space Nine is one of the most cinematic of the Star Trek series, certainly of like the 90s era. The ones today are incredibly cinematic, but Deep Space Nine very much. And the person you're looking for is Marvin V. Rush, who was the DP, director of photography, on, get this, so 92 episodes of Star Trek Enterprise, 161 episodes of Star Trek Voyager, how many episodes of Deep Space Nine? 45 episodes of Deep Space Nine and 78 episodes of Next Gen. So not a lot of people spent more time on the set of Star Trek than Marvin V. Rush.
It's really, it's real quick, just last point on that. From grabbing screenshots from our other shows, screenshotting is actually kind of difficult because you grab a lot of clunkers. However, I find that thus far on Deep Space Nine, it's not a challenge. It literally every shot is so well framed and so well thought out as a composition, a photograph, that it translates very well into screenshots. Now, I will say, if I'm going to point out, at this early stage in the game, some of it is a little clunky because I think they work a little backwards, whereas they have the shot in mind and then they work the blocking to get the characters. And a lot of times it's a little weird. Human beings don't move in the way that they you can literally see them scooting into position. I think that's, I'm giving that a grace period because we're early days, and I think they're going to get to know their set better and their kind of choreography as a cast better. But
no, for sure,
worth pointing out.
And I will also say, in their defense, they were, how we're struggling to fit in 16:9 right now. Like right now, both of us are struggling to fit.
Trying
in
not to break the immersion.
I don't know why you get more space than I do. What the hell? Anyway, they're working on 4:3, so almost a square they're dealing with. So Anyway, we'll talk more about that as we go on. But now it is time for a new old segment entitled Now Keith, waste your time with trivial trivia. Okay. So I'm just still going to give 3 pieces of trivia, but now it's got a thing.
It does have a thing. It does have a thing. So thank you for the thing, Keith. We all appreciate it. I know I do.
Enjoy that. So
Keith attempts to melt Mike's PC.
All right. So Galus Blinn in this episode has a forehead ridge right here as a Bajoran like Ro Laren. Other characters will have it for a little bit, and then it gets dropped as time goes on. So the first Bajoran we saw on Star Trek was, of course, Ensign Ro on Next Gen, and she had the little forehead ridge. But of course, our beloved Major Kira does not, and they will eventually drop it as an added piece of the Bajoran alien makeup. Because I'm sure it was a pain in the butt, and I imagined they didn't want Kira having to walk around with that on her forehead the whole time. So there you go. So trivia number 2.
Keith's at work. Who's calling Keith? That's the second trivia.
The second trivia is, yes, we're doing this on a work day, and I didn't turn my work phone off because, we're getting a subspace transmission from somebody wanting to check their subscription. All right, so trivia number 2. We see the first Ferengi rule of acquisition, which is never ask when you can take. Even though they hadn't come up with the concept of the Ferengi rules of acquisition. Basically, their 10 commandments. But of course, the Ferengi culture is all about business and acquisition of wealth. And so each of these rules of acquisitions are basically ways to screw people. Mm-hmm. And those are the rules that they have to follow in business. So, but this is the first one, even though it wasn't an official one because they hadn't talked about it. So, trivia number 3. There are 2 Ren and Stimpy references in this episode.
I love Ren and Stimpy. Tell me.
The character of Surmak Ren and Gul Sumpko are named after, of course, Ren, and Spumco is the Ren and Stimpy's animation studio. Or Spumps is the animation studio. So the writers and directors of this were big Ren and Stimpy fans, and so there's actually going to be a bunch of tiny little Easter eggs referencing Ren and Stimpy throughout the early seasons of this series. So lastly, here just a couple guest stars. We have Jack Keeler as Jahik. We have Matthew Faison as Surmak Ren. We have Anne Gillespie as Jabara and Geraldine Farrell as Galus. So I think it is time to hop into the theater and discuss this episode in detail.
Let's do it. Hey, that was easy.
And here we are. So we see right away in our teaser, there's some aliens trapped in the airlocks, and they're pissed. Everything's broken on Deep Space Nine and on our little episode show that we're doing right now. O'Brien is trying to fix it all.
Could be sabotage, Keith. Could be sabotage.
It could be many things. And so there's O'Brien, and the hairiest guest star in history is not pleased. So we have a little confrontation, and of course Dax calls O'Brien to rescue. There's a horrible noise in her office. She's probably listening to our show. It's not just the technobabble, it's some noise thing. Something, the same thing is happening in Ops. Everything is breaking. Kira and Cisco have problems, and we are reaching I Love Lucy levels now. So Mike, we're getting a little slice of life for O'Brien here as everything breaks down in the ship. How did you feel about this?
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious he's cranky. It's obvious there's a lot of work to be done. It's obvious a lot is being asked of him. And the top of this episode is actually very cute to me because it's a little over the top, as you mentioned. There's a little heavy-handedness. In fact, I think at one time, I don't know if there's a screenshot, but Cisco's going to get his coffee and right before we see him get his coffee, O'Brien is literally like, does the big old yawn, and then someone's like, oh, someone's not getting enough sleep. It's a little over the top, but, we got to get that, we got to set that scene. Oh, there it is.
There he is.
Oh, man, who replicated? So, Keith, before we go on,
Yeah.
this is your expertise. Explain to me the physics of the replicator. So you don't actually eat any food up there? It's just being like 3D printed, basically?
It is, yeah, it's essentially being 3D printed. They are they're basically transforming. They have matter storage, and the replicators use energy to create that matter into whatever food or whatever. So yeah, it's like the next gen of 3D printing.
So like
how they do
clearly
it.
in this case, when like some wires are fakaked underneath the sink, as we see O'Brien looking at, your food tastes shitty?
Yeah. So like they're basically building molecular recipes that they're pulling from, and if something goes wrong with that, it's gonna make the food taste bad.
Brings up some questions about commerce, though, right? Because later we see Quark kind of like illegally creating food out of like a spare room. But how do you like rank? When you talk about commerce, if there's 3 restaurants next to each other, how do you really rank their quality based on like recipes that are being created in a computer, right?
Well, yeah, because the recipes themselves are proprietary, right? Because a 5-star chef goes to the same grocery store that you do. It's what do they do with those ingredients?
Oh, interesting. Interesting copyright law.
Yeah, because I'm sure that I'm sure there are levels of like a higher, better replicators or worse replicators. Like, how good is your 3D printer?
That's what we need. We need some fan fiction just on copyright law of replicator.
I am
commerce.
sure. I'm sure it exists. I'm definitely sure it exists. But as we're moving forward, you'll find that the replicators work for more than just food. It's everything. If you want a chair, you can replicate a chair. You want a hydro spanner.
Mostly sex stuff, right?
Almost entirely sex stuff. Yeah. So anyway, speaking of sex stuff, we see our first DS9 Jeffries tubes, as while O'Brien talks to himself as people only do on television. And because something is mysteriously on the fritz with the replicators, which you can see there, those are Cardassian replicators, as opposed to the Federation replicators, which we see on Deep Space Nine.
We point it out all the time. Awesome practical set there. Such a cool practical set.
Oh, I mean, and all the lighting built into that, it's very, very cool. And so even though O'Brien doesn't see it, we pull back and discover a mysterious tech something.
Ooh.
Dun, dun, dun. And that is the end of our teaser. And we hop into Act 1. Now, I'm assuming based on context clues and music, you knew something was mysterious about that tech thing.
Something was amiss. It was technobabble, but, he's like, I think it's even worse than just seeing that. You see his hand like up behind the thing, and he like touches, his hand like raises the thing as they
like
fade to commercial with like a stinger. I was like, okay, well, there we go.
Dun, dun, dun.
But what this show does really well in these teasers is that it sets up, usually like was them playing like the trivia game last week. It's always sets up what seems to be a pretty simple premise, but then they go for it.
Yeah, and then it's always going to expand into something. And it's never quite what you think it is. Because certainly some weird like tech thing, had no idea we were going to head where we headed.
Mm-mm.
That
and
is
like at some point we discussed neuroscience. They're like every episode, it's like, what's a huge concept we can really delve into? Okay.
Well,
biological warfare and neuroscience. Let's do it. Go.
It's Star Trek fans. It's the smart folks. All right. So we began Act 1 as Odo taunts Quark for bad business in the bar. As they keep flirting, an elaborately made-up alien is pissed about his stew. Quark!
And he shoves it down his throat.
Yeah, no, it's it's really
You're gonna
quite
eat
something.
it. You're gonna like it, you son of a.
Yeah, exactly. So, cool makeup effects, though.
Yeah.
Luckily, Odo is there to rescue Quark, and we find out the replicators are messed up in Quark's station, and O'Brien is too busy to fix them yet, as you might imagine. So Quark decides to sneak out and use other replicators. And he's got security clearance sticks, because in the distant future, we're going to hide our passwords on little sticks. Which, honestly, like it's what are those little devices you use?
Thumb drives?
Not thumb drives.
Oh, yeah. The keys,
the something key for like high-end software like Pro Tools or something that comes with that. It actually is a physical device you plug in the computer. So you know what? I was going to make fun of them, and I retract that.
Actually, what I like about it more, and maybe it's just the way I saw it on this tiny screen, is that it's not just sort of a hard device. It seemed like it was liquid in there. Like it was sort of like a mixture of like hardware and biological something hidden in the little tubes. Who knows?
I didn't catch that, but that would make sense. I mean, certainly when we get on Voyager and we have the bioneural gel packs.
This is a good screenshot, though, to point out like one of the sort of production incongruencies that I sort of am enjoying. All of the all of the gear aboard, the screens, the machinations are all really cool designs, like really cool. Like this, who the hell knows what the hell it is, but it's cool, right? It's a bit digital, it's a bit analog, it's cool.
Right.
Cool design. But then when you get to like dossiers or information that needs to be passed in text, like we'll see later in the episode, I took some screenshot of just like, it looks like an early Carmen Sandiego DOS game. Like they just haven't figured out a good way to do future text on screen.
Well, and that's that is actually, boy, you just opened up a can of worms there. That's because they're doing a mixture of integrating what limited actual computer stuff that they can do with these plastic overlay backlit panels, which were designed by Michael Okuda, who designed the LCARS system you see on Next Generation, which is all the touchscreen stuff. And then behind that are computer monitors that they're projecting through it. So the LCARS stuff looks super cool and looks very futuristic. And you can see, and it's the same basic concept there. It's a gel that's lit from behind, but you can't change it on screen. And so we're seeing a mixture of what things would become, because, what did he do? It's a touchscreen iPhone. Everything is an iPhone there, and they developed iPads there as well. So, yeah, I mean, they're just coming across the limitations of 1993. But I don't think it's a lack of imagination. I just think it's a lack of technology.
Yeah, and that's just sort of like a general science fiction issue in design, right? Is that you're not just making content for the present. You have to see how can we make it futuristic enough and not show the limitations of what we have in the future. Like if you go back and watch the original series, I imagine there's some things you'd be like, okay, that's surely shag carpeting that's on the floor there.
Oh, well, no, for sure. But it is remarkable how much they got right. Because even back in the 60s, they weren't picking up a telephone with a cord. Right? They had a wireless telephone, which at that point was completely inconceivable. With the communicators, which then became a wearable piece of thing. But basically, they figured out exactly what it was going to be. It was limited. They didn't realize that it would have a touchscreen with video and all of that kind of stuff. But just the very idea of a phone in your hand in 1966 was inconceivable. But they got it right. They got flip phones right, at the very least. So on Ops, we discover that Keiko's school is working out, which is more serialization than ever happened on the Next Gen. And O'Brien's feeling hot. He starts talking nonsense for a second, but, nothing to worry about.
I didn't catch that it was nonsense. I literally just thought I didn't understand his lexicon. But, of course, Cisco gave us the slow read. He's like, what did you say?
What did you say? All right, so we see a bit of Kira and Dax, where Dax remembers how different it is to be a woman and continuously leered at, which I thought was a really interesting point of view for 1993.
But Dax ain't hating it.
No, but then for some reason, she likes it, because the show is written by men.
That's true. And those three extras, they were like, listen, we just need you to come onto the show and stare at her butt and like give like a yeah, and then walk off. Cool? Go for it.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. But good news in Quark's bar because it's hopping again.
Bang.
And he hits on Kira. So, as you might imagine. Back on Ops, a sweaty O'Brien is now talking full-on nonsense. And we know it's not technobabble. It's just nonsense. And thank God it's Colin Meaney, and he's such a good actor, because this could have been bad. But somehow it's not.
Now, do you think that it was written, that was all scripted, like the babble, or did they just were like talk gibberish?
That is a very interesting piece of trivia. Because in the original shooting draft, they wrote sort of nonsense and then realized it was sort of incomprehensible. So they wrote in sort of nonsense words, but then in parentheses wrote what they meant to be saying. So it was actually specifically scripted as real lines. And then they just sort of swapped out the random words. So but I think they started how you were thinking and realized it needed to be more organized than that. So Act 2, we begin with Bashir, who can't figure out what's wrong with O'Brien despite putting multiple devices near or on his head. We do learn that it's not just his speech patterns, because O'Brien writes more nonsense on his iPad, which is an interesting little wrinkle there. It's his brain is rearranging the words, not his mouth.
Yeah, they give a really, I think in the scene coming up, they give a really specific, I don't know if you figured it out yet, maybe I'm jumping the gun, but a really specific sort of neurological explanation for what's happening. It's very kind of cool.
Yeah, yes, well, they do, and it is right now. Bashir explains that it's aphasia. And they have no idea why it's happening. It's basically like their index got corrupted on their computer. And so you press H, but it types out a K. So
of course they've yet to be able to describe. So they figure out the sort of the communication issue, but they don't figure out why it gives you the meat sweats.
We do not know why you get the meat sweats. It could have just been lunch. There's got to be room for coincidence. He got the replicator fixed at some point. Got some barbecue.
Yeah,
it happens. So they have no idea what's happening. Cisco tells Dax to take over for O'Brien, but Dax has got it too. Bashir figures out that it's a virus causing it, and two more extras have it now too. We see Dax realizing that she has it there. So that's all happening. So what are you thinking now that it's a virus that's spreading?
So at this point, I'm like, oh, that's kind of that's very close to home. But I think in the scene coming up where they announce the ship-wide quarantine, where I started going, oh my God.
Yeah, I don't like this anymore.
Oh boy. And then I think I say on my watch along, which you can join us with at patreon.com/KNM. I'll get it. It is that sad to say. I was like, I wonder if we're going to handle this better on Deep Space Nine than we did in real life. Let's hope.
Well, I can answer that question. Ferengi. So it's a hoax. They establish a quarantine lockdown, but Quark isn't going to follow COVID protocols. Odo confronts him, and Quark says, I'm an essential business. and lies and says that Rom fixed the replicators. So we're going to talk more about Rom later.
I will say that thus far it's developing. I'm loving this little sort of frenemy, will they, won't they, with Quark and Odo. Like, they clearly despise each other, but end up being like teammates a lot, forced. And it's I don't know why I find it riveting. I find it riveting.
Yeah, well, I mean, they basically have the like best friends who hate each other dynamic that you and I have.
Yeah, except like I really want to see them make out, and we already have. So.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, all right. So just gonna leave that dangling.
No context. Yep, leave.
No context. No, it's more fun. So Cisco runs into Jake on the promenade, and Jake also doesn't care about COVID, so he doesn't care.
But this guy really cares about COVID.
This guy cares. This guy cares a lot.
This is actually, if I may stop the show in its tracks, this is 1,000% a screenshot of Keith during COVID.
Oh man, I wish I could tell you it wasn't true, but it was 100%
Just sad and hairy.
true.
Sad and hairy and
Sad
wanting to get the F out of there.
Growing increasingly hairy as time went on. You're 100% right. That's very sad. Anyway, so I apparently want to leave Deep Space Nine because I'm afraid of the virus. But Cisco won't let him leave.
Hell no.
Hell no. And naturally, we find out that Quark has been stealing replicator usage from empty quarters. And of course, Odo catches him and says it was because Quark said that Rom could fix the replicators, and Rom couldn't fix a bent straw. Shots fired.
Listen, I've read on certain corners of the internet, Keith, that
Probably don't want to know.
That the undercover Odo reveals are a little on the nose. I gotta tell you, 100,000%. We're only 4 episodes in, but every time he's appeared in a room, it has surprised me. Every time. Even when they set it up so much like T-Ball, like, oh, here's Quark, and I'm just wheeling a cart. I'm just wheeling a cart in this room. I had no idea he was about to get caught. So there you have it.
Well, of course, and of course, you think about this, right? The number of times that Quark is up to something like mildly nefarious, that Odo catches him, how many hours of Odo's time are spent like slinking around as a boot or a painting following Quark that he didn't do anything wrong. He just like picking his nose. And like,
speaking of restraining orders.
Yeah, like I'm a flower pot for 8 hours and Quark is just like a little gassy. It's like, it's going to be awkward because like, how do you leave?
Right? That flower pot just fart.
I think that's...
What's happening? Let's move forward.
Right, okay. Okay, so anyway, Odo taking a shot at Rom being a dum-dum is interesting because we're going to learn that that's very not true. And his Rom couldn't fix a bent straw thing. Nobody told Odo that straws aren't a thing anymore. So definitely a little 93 coming up. So back on the bridge, or on Ops, it turns out that the virus is coming out of the replicators. And that Quark, no surprise, has now given the whole station COVID. But as it turns out, as we're about to make that a big major plot point about how Quark gave all these people, it doesn't matter because it's airborne now.
It's airborne, baby. That's when I was like, gulp.
Gulp, indeed. It's a bummer that it was sort of structured that way. I feel like they had like lost time because the consequences of Quark having given everybody this thing through stolen replicators, that should have been more of a plot point. But we didn't have time. It's airborne. We're moving on to Act 3.
It was cool that it was interesting, Lisa, that, and it might have been a retcon actually, because it wasn't that we discovered it was airborne. We discovered that it evolved, right? That it mutated to become airborne. That's
right, which is all the scarier in a virus.
It was basically, so it's a variant, is what we're saying.
It's a variant. That's right. So, at the beginning of Act 3, we find out that 60% of the station has the virus.
With varying gestational periods.
That's right. Which is also indicative of a virus. And Kira finds the tech we saw in the teaser. She finds the little virus spider. And turns out they think it was Cardassian sabotage. Turns out
bastards. They think they found somebody bought it at Toys R Us.
Somebody bought it at Toys R Us. It's got some choking hazards in there. We should review it on our other show. So anyway, Cisco gets summoned to sickbay where he finds out that, Jake has the vid. No surprise there. And we discover a whole room of sick and confused people. And
meat sweats everywhere.
So word salad and meat sweats is happening everywhere around the station. And it's actually, we joke here, but it's a very sort of sweet scene where we can see see Cisco's relationship with Jake and how concerned he is.
But as of yet, if I'm not mistaken, there have been no signs of fatalities.
Not yet. Not yet. So Bashir is still looking into who made the virus. It actually wasn't the Cardassians at all. Dum, dum, dum. It was actually the Bajoran Underground who put it in there when the station was built 18 years ago. So they need Kira to track down.
And it just needed to be triggered. So was it triggered when O'Brien's hand hit it? This was the point. This is sort of the one thing. Like, what launched it?
I think I'm not entirely sure. I think it was a little ambiguous. Whether he scanned it or something and that triggered it. I think the plan was to have been set off a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was sort of like he came across a mine from World War II or something. That something malfunctioned, I would imagine. So they send Kira to track down who set the trap all those years ago, and in the quarantine ward, we find out it's getting bad for O'Brien and looks like the virus is going to be fatal.
In 12 hours. 12 hours.
So tick, tick. At the beginning of Act 4, O'Brien's only got 12 hours to live. Well done, Mike.
It's crazy that in the future, they can it's not just like he's only got a couple weeks. It's like we can tell you to the second how long he will and when he will die.
Yeah, well, the tech's better. Yeah. It's good stuff. They got to find a cure, and it's coming for everybody. So everyone is going to die. So
go back that one shot. I just want to give Mike's shout out to, man, all that makeup on, but he's still not just a great actor. He gives you great face. He's giving you such great facial acting, even behind all that crap.
Yeah, I mean,
what's that actor's name again?
Armin Shimmerman, who is, I mean, again, like it's having the two of them together is an embarrassment of riches. Armin Shimmerman and Rene Auberjonois, like two phenomenal actors, just getting to play, and it's
top of their game.
I mean, we're 4 episodes in, and we know that chemistry is off the charts, and so much fun. So Kira's searching for the guy who made the virus, but it turns out he died in a Cardassian prison. But Kira does track down that he has an assistant. Meanwhile, Odo and Quark hang out in the empty casino. Odo admits he's never learned how to gamble. It's interesting that they sprinkle in all these little nuggets about Odo and how Odo has lived or chosen not to. That I think we learned last week about he's never been intimate with somebody. We learned this week I think already we're getting the sense that he has sort of lived parallel to everybody else. A little bit isolated, a little bit removed, hasn't chosen to participate in a lot of things. So just a little nugget there.
Cycle me through some shots here. I think we're a little behind.
No, we're right on time.
Look at you, man. Well done.
I know. So Bashir keeps working, but Bashir's now got it. And we see a shot from his point of view, right? And we see that
was cool.
The words, which I think great little wrinkle, because from his eyes, what's on the pad is jumbled. And so so I'm assuming in real life, the words on the pad aren't jumbled. It's just his point of view there.
Right, which I think gives us the unnecessary but cool insight, which does come into play a little bit later when Cisco, spoiler, gets affected, is that whereas you're able to recognize if other people aren't in the room, because usually the context clue that, oh shit, I got it, is people can't understand you. But in this case, isolated, he was able to understand, oh no, I'm infected. Which in this case, because now there's a ticking clock, it's not just the bad news of being infected, but also I can no longer be a part of the help because I can't communicate anything I discover.
That's right. It's really, it's pretty fascinating. So anyway, Kira, oh, you know what? I think I am pretty behind on the screenshots.
Mike was right.
Mike was right.
It's almost like I took these screenshots.
It's almost like you took the screenshots. That's right. All right. So Kira finds her guy. There he is. It's Dakon Elig.
It's Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego?
Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego? Yeah, you know what? I was looking at a different Odo. Anyway, folks, you should be watching the episode. get onto your Paramount Plus. It's still on Netflix, but probably by the time you see this, it won't be. There's our shot of the screen happening there. So Kira finally talks to the guy. He pretends to not know what's happening. And Kira wants to go in person to hunt him down, breaking quarantine if she leaves the runabout. Meanwhile, it's getting worse on the station. Jake and Cisco have a nice moment because Cisco's a good dad. Backing ups, there's a nice... So we're getting more father-son stuff. All right, so we discover that the hairy alien, i.e. me, I'm trying to break quarantine. But Cisco can't release the ship from the docking clamps because otherwise it'll make a boom. So we're starting to add the stakes here, add the ticking clock.
But his people are on board, so he's trying to just scoot by himself.
Yeah, no, he's like, peace out. I don't care about y'all.
Did they explain why he's so worried? It's just that because in the beginning he wanted to leave too. That was an unclear point to me, like what his whole everything about him.
Well, I think on the spectrum of Quark, I don't give a shit about COVID, freedom. To this guy, I'm really freaked out, and I'm
but even before the virus was on board, he was like all freaked out.
I believe he has a ship full of vegetables. Oh. So he's got a ticking clock on his merchandise as well, is what I remember. Correct? If I'm wrong, leave a comment below and tell me why I wanted to get off the ship the entire episode. So all right. So at the beginning of Act 5, because now we've got some boom on the station, everybody might die. And we're going to have to rely on Kira to save us here.
So basically, I can't remember if you got in the synopsis or not, but where we are here is she finds the guy. Mm-hmm. Turns out who created the thing. He's dead, but his assistant is alive. And he was like, I'm not going to help you. I don't remember anything. And so she's concocting a plan to potentially, questionably ethically trick him.
Well, I think Kira would say ethically necessary. So she arrives on Bajor and transports this guy onto the runabout, exposing him to the virus. Because damn, Kira understands leverage. Mm-hmm. And so, not so thrilled. But to be fair, he did help develop it. So he just needed some motivation. But we get a great shot of the runabout. It's in these first few episodes, we haven't really left the station very much.
Mm-hmm. Although she had one plan prior. Like, this is her second sort of underhanded technique. I don't want to say underhanded. This is her technique to save the day. This is the second time it's taken place on the runabout.
Yes,
remember, both times involving her old gang.
Well, right, because we see a lot of people from her past in the Resistance cropping up here and there, and that's not surprising. But yeah, they've hit it pretty hard thus far in the series. So back at Deep Space Nine, the hairy alien, i.e. me, my ship's on fire, and it's gonna blow up and take out part of the station. And they need to manually blow the docking clamps to save the station. So did you get all the machinations of that?
Yeah, they're gonna they wanted to jettison him in some sort of way so that then they could go capture him.
No.
Okay. So no, the answer to your question, Keith, is I did not understand the machinations.
No. Yes, they want to save me, of course, but because this is a space station, his ship is physically docked to the space station.
Right. And the clamps are too hard, so they can't just let him go.
Well, right. So the clamps have locked, so if the ship blows up, it's going to blow up part of the station. Right, so they have to manually release the clamps in order to get the ship away so it doesn't blow up the station. So it's more than just about saving me. Although honestly, that's all I care about.
Yeah, but then their plan is no, we're gonna blow our clamps on purpose to let him go, and then we'll go tractor beam him.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So they can.
It doesn't matter because, as I'll point out later, the whole thing is stupid. It's a completely unnecessary plot point, in my opinion.
But they needed fire. They got fire for the trailer. Ugh. All right. Anyway, so we find out, Cisco is sick now. And Odo is forced to ask for help for anyone in the station who isn't sick yet.
You know I love an Avery Brooks line read, but Avery Brooks gibberish line read? Chef's kiss.
Yes, indeed. Well, you say the good actors, you listen to reading the phone book. Avery Brooks, I'd listen to him read the phone book out of order. Mm-hmm. So there you are. So back in the runabout.
Odo didn't want to be in charge anyway, but now that Captain is down, like he's really stressing a little bit.
He's the only one there. So back in the runabout, the scientist is kind of shifty and doesn't know any antidote. Kira tells him he's exposed now, motivation. And so back on the station, because as if like that wasn't clear right from the very beginning, but now
that's a great shot there. That was a great shot.
Like I will lick you with my COVID.
Basically, she's like, I'm gonna shoot a scene in 4:3, and you're gonna get this crap anyway.
In 4:3. So back on the station, who is the only person on the entire station who can help Odo rescue me and the station itself? Of course, it's Quark, and he beams Odo to the docking ring, and Quark is now in charge of ops.
Keith, it's time for Mike's trivia.
Okay, Mike's trivia. Let's hear it.
This is great. In the future, folks, make sure to Patreon support us now because in the future we might even have a professional wrestling show. Go figure. Keith, what do Quark, when pressed into service because the ship is in quarantine and the captain is down for the count, and WWE's The $1 Million Man have in common?
Ooh. I don't know. The $1 Million Belt? Let's hear it.
Everybody's got a price.
That's true. All right. Now that is a deep cut. But I know that there are some wrestling Trek fans out there. Vance, I know. So we're gonna find out who responds to that.
Quark's like, you need me to save everybody's life? Nah. And Odo's like, oh, so chivalrous. And he's like, I will be charging. The bill is in the mail.
Yes, indeed. All right, so the scientist is now working on the virus, and of course, Kira has it, tick, 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 at the docking ring. Odo saves the hairy alien. We've got fire, very fun. He releases the docking clamps and saves it. Quark is very concerned because, of course, they're best friends, let's be honest. And so we see the boom. I mean, come on, you gotta have a boom.
Yeah, you're right.
That's fun.
Man, Quark had to do all that, and then he had to beam out, get the guy, and beam back?
Well, no, Odo did. Odo.
Yeah, Odo.
So Quark beamed Odo from Ops to the docking ring because there wasn't enough time to go there normally.
All that produce.
All that produce. Oh, so much valerian root. So anyway, we're back on the station, and ta-da! The scientist finds the antidote. And
very quickly, he found it in a log somewhere, and he just
like, oh, there it is.
That's like a press release being like, Moderna vaccine, yay,
all set. So Odo releases the ship. Boom! Quark and Odo's love saves the day. The antidote works, and everyone's fine. But
the coffee's still cold.
The replicators are down again.
Oh.
And that is Babel. So we've now babbled a lot. Let us give out some fake awards in a segment. It's time to run along home with the AlamarEmmys. Back with the AlamarEmmys talking about Deep Space Nine, Season 1, Episode 4, Babel. I'm huge! I apparently AlamarEmmys myself through that bumper.
Oh, man.
So our first segment, of course, is looking for wormholes in the plot. Mike, did you find any wormholes in this plot?
Two things real quick I'll just mention. I brought them up briefly before. I don't quite know how the whole thing triggered. Like, was that a remote control behind there, like in the teaser that like launched the virus, or was there another thing that happened? And then how did it get into the other replicator? Like, the whole thing was like a little convoluted, but really not the point. That's one thing. And then the whole guy with the produce seemed, it didn't further the plot. It didn't really add any stakes. It didn't seem necessary because there's an interesting kind of mystery as to with the doctor and get the vaccine and all that stuff. So those are my two things I point out. Keith?
Yeah, I mean, I think the little device here is going to be Mike finds holes in the plot and Keith tries to fill them. That's really going to be the segment. So I think that device was supposed to have the replicator replicate the virus, right? So once it gets switched on, and something went wrong that didn't get it to switch on, but so it replicated the virus into the food, and then once the virus was out, it mutated and did all of these other things. If I had a wormhole in the plot about that specifically, is in our Deus Ex Machina at the very end there, they had the cure for the virus, but what about the mutation? Because the mutation to go airborne is a pretty significant mutation. So, but Bashir, no, it wasn't Bashir. It was this guy. I guess he was real quick on being able to adapt to the new variant.
I know we're kind of wrapping it up here, but I will say that, okay, great. We found the vaccine, right?
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine we're going to have to use the replicators to replicate the vaccine. So doesn't that sort of create a sort of Ouroboros of crap? Aren't we infecting the antidote as we create it?
Well, no, because I think once Kira discovered the device, they were able to take that code out of the replicator thing. But that's a little unclear. And as far as the hairy guy, like, I get it's sort of a parallel story that we just needed to have some action. And but it was a good moment for Quark and Odo. And while we're talking about best moments, why don't we do our segment about Keith and Mike's favorite moment? Mike, what was your favorite moment?
A couple of things I really liked. I really liked Bashir again getting to be smart doc and like figure some stuff out and really be like competent. I like him better than like horny 18-year-old, but maybe I'll grow to love horny 18-year-old Bashir. So I liked that. But I think my moment of the show is the scene, the whole kind of ending scenes with Quark and Odo. I'm just digging them as the team. We had some great moments with Avery Brooks and Jake and everything, but I think this was the scene that created the relationship that interests me most going forward.
Yeah, I was going to give that as my answer too, because I really love that relationship. I love that relationship sort of growing and expanding as we're going. But just because you did that, I'm going to pick Kira's extorting the guy, basically putting him at a viral gunpoint in order to... Ew. No.
I mean, ostensibly.
I don't need that.
Help me with the vaccine.
That now, God, Jesus. That now exists on the internet. That will be screenshotted. That could be a t-shirt.
Our subscribers are like, brrrr.
We don't have any to begin with. Jeez. All right. Anyway.
It's an exponential growth.
All right. I think we just went viral. Okay, so let us do our episode rating. What do you say, Mike?
Yes, let's. You've got to go low. I've got to go. I'm going to go abnormally high. This is my favorite episode we've seen. Really weird feeling inside, but it was nice to have such a quick fix at the end since it hit so close to home. So it was nice that we were able to just solve an entire...
Did it get locked down for 3 years?
Yeah, pandemic by just going, oh, it's in the logs, vaccine. And
we did it.
He has such a shit-eating grin on his face when he turns to her and he's like, lucky for us. I was like, okay. No, but it's a really great episode. What they're doing really well, aside from just some amazing shots, is you're seeing a lot of cohesion also in the cast. They're finding ways to work together. They're finding ways to... And it's not... not that I don't know enough about Trek to say this, but it's often the captain is the brilliant one who is just kind of like it's very hierarchical, and this doesn't feel that way. It feels like they're all getting their moments to shine. He's leaning on all of them and their expertise, and they all have ways to grow. Where Odo could be, he's such a fascinating character because they could play him as sort of, I think I've made this analogy before, like a very Data-like. He's just all-knowing. He's so smart. He's condescending, but no, he's got so many flaws and holes, and we're learning about his growth, and that goes for every character. In Quark, we get a little like Quark's great too. Like, what's his whole thing? Clearly, he's got some underhanded ideals, but also he's very willing to help. And every time he's been called to service, he has not manipulated those scenarios. He's been very helpful. So I hope that gets recognized. I'm loving what I'm seeing so far. My favorite episode thus far, even with Harry Keith in it. I'm gonna say I can't go any lower than, what did I go last week? Do you have it written down?
Somewhere.
I want to go 86, but that feels really high. But
you know what? Follow your heart. Oh yeah,
86.
last week was a 77.
Okay, that's fine. I'm going to go 83.
83. Okay, yeah. I mean, I think this was a much stronger episode. This is probably the strongest of the regular episodes that we've done after the pilot. Yeah, I think it's enjoyable. I think the mystery is interesting. I think it certainly could have been much worse, considering we're all running around saying nonsense words. I loved the idea of basically finding the landmine that'd been there for 30 years. Right, and the sabotage that's just been sticking around, and because we're in a station that's been in basically at wartime, that there's going to be a lot of weird stuff happening there, and I really liked that element of it. I liked Kira's arc in this very much, so I think I'm going to give it a 79.
Okay, that's pretty close.
Yeah, pretty good, pretty solid. All right, so you forgot a segment, sir.
I did?
Yeah, you forgot to pitch us next episode.
Oh, yeah. Oh, boy.
Which, in real life, the next episode will be Captive Pursuit. But I'm going to be more captivated by Mike's pitch for next week.
It's Dax time, baby. I want to know what's going on. Dax, are you a horny teenager too? Or are you that kind of like more spiritual being inside? What's going on? Everybody's horny for Dax. We need some clarification as to where it's their mind is. So that's what I want to see next week. Okay.
Well, that is, we're going to get there. I don't know if it's going to be next week, but we're going to get there. Fun episode next week. There are multiple action figures from next week, which I will show you because, we're an action figure thing. So, Mike, if people would like to support us before we get to next episode, tell them how.
Help us out. This is the part of the show where we will read your names if there were any patrons. There are not yet, at least in this weird time continuum that we have. We haven't
launched yet.
Patreon.com/KNM. Lots of goodies there for you. We appreciate your support if you're able to. If not, just please like and subscribe. Maybe tell a friend. We want to get those subs up so that this is a more fun community. You can also mailbag there, or you can leave us questions down below. Keith, always fun to hang out with you, buddy.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you back next week with Captive Pursuit. I am pumped. Till then, this has been Keith and Mike Watch Deep Space Nine. Thank you for watching K&M Entertainment. If you enjoyed our particular brand of nonsense, please like and subscribe. Or become one of our patrons at patreon.com/KNM.